You are now listening to Season 1 of the VMX Show.
And hey everybody, Season 1 Episode 2 of the VMX Show, and that was Rainbow Cemetery from the video game Castlevania Symphony of the Night, one of the greatest video game soundtracks of all time. I wouldn't put it as number one, but if I was to ever do something like a top 10 best video game soundtracks feature on YouTube, which is certainly something that I would consider doing, I think that I'd have to have a self-imposed rule that I could only have one soundtrack per series. Otherwise, these things would tend to get filled up with Castlevania or Mega Man or Zelda or any of the other game series that are very well known for their soundtracks. Castlevania perhaps being the game that is most well known for its soundtracks. I think it's actually more known for the soundtracks than anything else, which is something that could be a topic of debate. Speaking of Castlevania, we're going to have my very first guest later on the show, who goes by many names. I call her Jess. You might know her as Visionik or Sweetie Gamer on YouTube, so she's going to be coming in. She wanted to talk about the new Castlevania game that's going to be coming out for Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 sometime this year, Castlevania Lords of Shadow, which we all know I'm very excited about. She's very excited about it, wanted to come on the show and talk about it, so we'll have that coming up in a bit. For now, I think I'd like to take a look at the questions that you guys posed to me last week when I did the very first episode of the VMX Show. I said, send me questions, and I'll answer them on the show. So I got a number of questions for the show, so let's take a look. Ether Crowley sends me this question. What do you think of the fact that sexuality is considered so taboo in video games, yet extreme violence is tolerated to a much greater extent? I have this question mainly due to BioWare and their decision to not put any sort of nudity in Mass Effect 2, due to the outrage over an ass in the first game. It seems strange to get all worked up over the same amount of nudity you'd see in a SpongeBob SquarePants cartoon, and yet not say a peep when you can crystallize enemies and shatter them or blow them up with grenades. He goes by Ethereal Antichrist on YouTube, named Ether Crowley. To answer your question, Ether, or maybe you want me to call you Ethereal or Antichrist, or maybe I'll just call you Christ. How does that sound? Okay, so Christ, this is my answer to your question. This phenomena is not anything that is new. And it's not just related to video games. It happens in movies as well, and there's nothing that can illustrate this better by what will get you an R rating. Violence by itself has to be very, very graphic to get an R rating. Usually when there's a very violent movie that is rated R, it also has language in it, and it also has nudity or sexuality in it, or it has other sorts of adult themes. Very hard to get an R rating specifically only for violence. Usually it's sex that'll push it over the edge. Another thing is, then you go further. What's past R? NC-17. If you see that NC-17 rating on a movie, you pretty much have precluded that there's going to be nudity in it, because the amount of violence that you would need to get an NC-17 rating without having any cursing, or without having any titties, or penis or whatever, is probably astronomical. I don't think I've ever seen an NC-17 rated movie that didn't have nudity. So that's another thing that you have to consider. And one more thing is that this is very much a Western thing. In Japan, in Europe, they're very much the opposite. As a matter of fact, in Europe, they're very much anti-violence. One perfect example, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, not a very violent cartoon. The video games, not extremely violent. The comic book's a little bit more violent. But at one point, they had decided that the word ninja is too violent a connotation, and so in Europe, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are actually known as the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. I believe that recently that they've been restored to being the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because TMNT rolls off the tongue a whole lot better than TMHT, at least according to me. I couldn't go around saying TMHT. But you have to understand that the focus on sexuality being a bad thing while violence is okay, very much an American concept. Obviously, you're probably an American. I didn't bother to go look at your channel to see if you were from some other country. But based on your question alone, I would say that you're probably living in America, and you're probably experiencing this. I can't really say what caused this. What do I think of it? Of course, I think it's ridiculous. I think that, why can't you show breasts but you can show blood and guts? I think that sexuality and physical love is definitely something that we should be embracing, while violence, especially the kind of very over-the-top violence that we see, we should probably scale that back. Now, I'm not saying that I'm for censorship or violence. I'm not for any sort of censorship. But I do think it's a bit strange that we censor tits and ass more than we suffer people getting blown into tiny little giblets. And what I said about the ratings for movies also, of course, applies to video games. Now, it's easy to get an M rating for violence than it is to get an R rating for violence in movies. But for the very most part, if you see the AO rating, which you don't see all that often, it's usually due to sexuality. Of course, there was the whole hot coffee mod in Grand Theft Auto. I forget which game it was. I think it was San Andreas. But there was the whole hot coffee thing, which was a sexually themed mini-game that was found hidden in the code, and the game had to be re-released for an adults-only rating. Now, this was especially hilarious because not only was it something that nobody had found until after the game was released, it was something that you couldn't possibly access unless you literally hacked into it. So there was really no reason for that kind of panic. The Mass Effect thing was absolutely hilarious because it was so overblown. Basically, it was a love scene, there was a butt, and that's really all there was to it. And of course, this turned into the whole thing of the censorship pundits saying that you can go around raping people in the game, and that you got extra points for the term that they had coined, orgasmic rape, which I think is in itself, whoever came up with that term should probably be shot in the face. And if it's video games that caused me to come to that conclusion, if they made me a violent person and they made me want to shoot people in the face or have them be shot in the face by somebody else for saying something so fucking retarded that it rips the very fabric of space and time, then oh well, doesn't matter. I think that video games didn't cause that, but if people want to come to that conclusion, that's okay. As for BioWare deciding not to put any nudity in Mass Effect 2, I don't know. Are you disappointed? I mean, does it really matter? Does it really add to the story? Does it add to the gameplay experience? I don't think we really need nudity in video games like you sometimes need nudity in movies, because it's something that I don't think we're at the point where we're making video games with such strong storylines that nudity is going to be non-gratuitous. It's so easy to do it without the nudity. An ass is not a big deal, and I don't think anybody should have kicked up a big fuckstorm over that, but that's what I think about it. I think it's utterly ridiculous. Moving on to the next question, this is for FoxFang96 is back on YouTube. He asks me, what is my favorite commentary of all time that I made? Of course, referring to the commentary videos that I do on YouTube. I think I've talked about this previously, but I don't mind talking about it again. The Garfield A Week of Garfield video, which was this NES game that was released only in Japan. I forgot who requested it. As a matter of fact, I'm sitting at my computer right now, and I'm going to try and see if I can quickly bring up who requested it, because I'd like to thank them. Probably the most hilarious video I've ever done. I'm a big fan of that one. And whenever I try to get someone into my videos, I usually show them that one first, because it's absolute... Oh, Phantos the Hedgehog asked me to do it, and it was actually for his birthday. I no longer do birthday requests, but there you have it. That is my absolute favorite. And what's funny is that was a very good week for me in terms of commentary. My second favorite video is probably Out of This World on Super NES, which I did, if not in the same week... If not in the same day, then in the same week, certainly. It was very close to each other. So those two videos are my favorites. I also have some other favorites. A lot of the older videos, I had problems with syncing up the audio and the video, so that became a problem, and I'm very good at doing it now where that doesn't happen. One example of a good video that I don't like to actually watch, I just like to listen to because of the synchronization problems, is the Chuck Norris Super Kicks on Atari 2600, which at the time I considered to be the worst game ever made. Of course, as you all know, since then I have also played Hong Kong 97 on the Super NES, or rather Super Famicom, because there was no chance of that getting released here. And believe it or not, Hong Kong 97 was actually a commercially released game, which is kind of hilarious and horrible in and of itself. Okay, moving on to the next questions. This one's from SSerpent21 on YouTube. He has two questions for me, and this is what he says. Dear NecroVMX, I love your new show idea, and I am listening to it now. Well, obviously you're not listening to it now, but you were listening to it when you wrote the question, and I thank you for listening to the first episode of the show, and I hope that this episode is even better. Here are some questions for you. Sorry if they've been asked before and if I missed them. Okay, so here's question one. With Mega Man 9's popularity, do you think we will see more retro-styled games in the same vein? I would love to see a new 8-bit style Dragon Warrior, Dragon Quest game. I don't know if I'd love that. I think that Dragon Quest actually has evolved to the point where it's gotten better and better. Dragon Quest 8 being my absolute favorite RPG of all time, and definitely one of my absolute favorite video games of all time. I don't know that I'd go back to 8-bit there. Mega Man 9 was, of course, this great game, and Mega Man 10, which just recently came out this week, I did a couple of videos of myself playing it, and that is also great. So, about that, I would love to see it, but it's already happening. Konami is, of course, doing their Rebirth series. There's Contra Rebirth, Gradius Rebirth, and Castlevania The Adventure Rebirth. And these are all on the Wii, and I would be very surprised if we didn't see more of these in the future. And, of course, there's games like Final Fantasy IV The After Years, which is a direct sequel to Final Fantasy IV for WiiWare that uses the same graphics and everything. And there's lots of these games that you can find. So, actually, I don't even think that Mega Man 9 started it. It's certainly one of the most talked about because it's Mega Man. but I think that we're definitely going to continue to see more and more of these retro-styled games. When I was talking about Mega Man 9 in my anti-rant video, which was a response to that schmuck John Gibson over from Video Masters, I said that I would love to see a 16-bit styled Mega Man X9, which I think a lot of people would love to see that. Here's your second question. I'm always seeing piss and moan fests about the Sonic CD soundtracks as far as which is better, the American version or the Japanese version. Which one do you prefer, or if you like them both, what do you like about each? For what it's worth, I like the American one more. Thank you and have a great day. Unfortunately, as Serpent21, I can't really give you a good answer because I haven't actually heard the Japanese soundtrack. As for arguing over which is better, of course it's going to be a matter of taste, which is the fact in all music, where you're going to argue about this one's better, that one's better. It's always going to be a matter of taste. I'd like to say that I've heard them both and I can give you an opinion. I've only ever heard the American song, so I can't say that I can give you a real answer there. Moving on to the next question. This one's from AaronMan4772 on YouTube. And here's his question. My question is regarding some newer developments on the Castlevania movie that I never heard you talk about, but I'm curious to hear your opinions about it. After this, there was some question about whether or not it would actually be made. Director James Wan, who has produced some movies such as the Saw franchise and the game Dead Space, has picked it up and has tasked the whole script idea of it and is redoing it from the ground up with a new writer and a whole new concept of the movie. So my question is, do you think this is a good move for the movie? And do you think having James will improve the movie? Well, I can't really answer that either because there's really nothing to answer. I'm not saying that it's a poorly constructed question, but there's not enough information to make any conclusions. I can't say whether it would improve the movie or make it worse because there's really no way of telling how it would have turned out under Paul A. Anderson's directions, or how it would have turned out with the previous writers and the previous script, and there's no telling what this guy is going to do. Personally, I'm of the opinion that the Castlevania movie is probably going to suck balls, but I'm such a big Castlevania fan that I'm basically a whore for the franchise who will show up and see it anyway, and I'll probably derive some form of enjoyment out of it, even if it's the worst movie I've ever seen. So one more question. This one's from Emil Garjanis. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Well, actually, I don't really give a shit, but you know. So here's his question. Hey, I have a few questions for your next VMX podcast. Do you ever will make... Okay, English is not your first language, is it? Do you ever will make videos for arcade games? If no, then why? Not in the near future. Of course, that is something that I would like to do sometime in the future, but I'm not planning on doing it soon. You'll certainly see videos for arcade games crop up here and there, but it's not something that I'm going to take requests for. Same thing goes for PC games and PlayStation and things like that. PlayStation I'll eventually add, of course. The reason behind this is simple. To take requests, I pretty much have to have all of the games, or at least a very, very close, like 99% collection of the games. And, well, for PlayStation, the files are huge, so I've been putting them on CDs, and I got a couple of spindles of PlayStation games, but it's nowhere near the whole library, so there's that. Another thing is, with arcade games, they can be kind of a bitch to emulate at times. MAME is a very good emulator, but you're not always going to get perfection. Of course, I do plan on eventually having where anybody can request any kind of video game, but for now, I'm not sticking to that, so I hope that answers. Here's his next part. He says, in the first episode, you talked about Wii, Xbox, and PS3. What do you think about gaming on PC? Do you think PC gaming will die eventually? No, I don't think it'll die eventually. PC gaming is, in a lot of ways, older than console gaming. It's a bit of a pain in the ass, and I think that the current crop of consoles has certainly brought consoles a lot closer to PC gaming. But the thing is, I know a lot of people who are PC gamers for the most part. I know some people who are PC gamers exclusively and don't play consoles at all. And I have to say that from my knowledge of talking to these people and seeing a lot of this online, I have to say that PC gaming has a very, very dedicated and loyal fan base. And as long as it is making money and it remains to be financially marketable and profitable, then you will never see PC gaming die away. You'll see PC gaming die away when it stops making money. And finally, where are your comic book reviews? I'm not doing that anymore. I just don't have the time, so sorry about that. And he says, thanks, have a great fucking day. Well, you too, Emil. Have a great fucking goddamn game, shitfuck. I know you just wanted to hear me say that. So anyway, we got to talk a little bit about Castlevania. I got Jessica coming up in a little bit. She's going to talk about the new game with me. But right this second, I wanted to talk about something that's been in video game news this past week. I am, of course, talking about the PlayStation Network Era 8001050F. Oh man, I don't have a PlayStation 3, so somebody had to tell me about this. Basically, what happened was the other day, all PlayStation 3s, except for certain models of the PlayStation 3 Slim, which is the newest model, went offline. They were not able to connect to the PlayStation Network, and strangely enough, this affected offline games, so you weren't able to play the PlayStation 3s at all. Basically, a form of Y2K sort of bug. What happened is, I guess the people there, the fine folks over there at Sony, who have designed the PlayStation 3's internal clock, didn't know that this year, and this is hilarious to me. I'm having a hard time saying this because it's so funny to me. They didn't know that this was not a leap year. So, after February 28th, the thing tried to roll over to February 29th, which, of course, there is no February 29th, 2010. There is no February 29th, 2011. It won't be until 2012 that we'll get a leap year. So this is just absolutely hilarious. This is the older models of PlayStation 3s, and the whole thing, the date reverted back to like 2000. When you try to sync up with PlayStation Network, it would just kick you right off the game. The reason you couldn't play offline games had something to do with the trophies. I would have thought that just disconnecting it from the internet would help it. A lot of drama about this. This got fixed fairly quickly. I think the very next day it was already fixed. But it's very funny. It also affected the PlayStation Portable Go, PSP Go. Of course, not many people were talking about that because not many people have the PSP Go because it's a ridiculous fucking console. But that being said, the PlayStation 3, I talked about this in the last episode. It's had a hard time, and it's trying to come back, challenge Microsoft, challenge Nintendo, and it looks like it's in a big, good position to finally do something. And then this happens. And just to see some of the bickering and bullshit online, of course, all the Microsoft fans are basically like, get an Xbox 360, that'll fix it. That's how you fix the error. And then, of course, the PlayStation people, these ridiculous fanboys on both sides of the PlayStation people, are basically like, well, yeah, if I buy an Xbox, it's just going to break in 3 days, the fucking red ring of death. I think we're past the whole red ring of death thing. I've had an Xbox 360 for almost a year now, and I've never had any sorts of issues with it. So, I mean, I think that, I've seen pictures. I've seen a picture of this guy standing alone. Nobody's with him, and he's standing up holding a sign like he's a protester that says the 360 has a 52% failure rate. I've heard all sorts of ridiculous percentages. I've heard higher percentages than that. I've heard lower percentages than that. It doesn't really matter to me because mine is fine, and if mine breaks, I'll just get it fixed. But the fact is that why does this guy feel so strongly about it that he's got to go outside in public and hold up a sign like anyone gives a shit? Like, what are they going to do? Honk if you support PlayStation 3? It's fucking ridiculous, people. Get a fucking life. I mean, both consoles are good. I personally prefer the Xbox, but they're both good consoles. The main reason that I don't get the PlayStation 3 is because all the games on it that interest me are on the 360, and the 360 was cheaper. So, there you go. And a lot of the arguments have to do with a lot of HD shit and whatnot. But of course, now we have the bickering, and now the Xbox 360 players have something to hold over PlayStation players' heads. Now, they can counter Red Ring of Death with the error 8001050F. And of course, the PlayStation people are just going to come back and they're going to say, well, that only happened for a day, man. It was fixed the very next day. And then it's like, well, you guys are still fucking harping on the Red Ring of Death, so You know, what can I say? Console wars, it gets ridiculous. I don't mind healthy competition, but the online fanboys, it gets really, really ridiculous. I mean, I remember back in 1998, I was only 17 years old, 17 turning 18 that year, and when I first got online, and God, that was 12 years ago, really makes me feel old as fuck, but I just remember being caught up in the whole PlayStation and Nintendo 64 thing, and I had the Nintendo 64, and I guess it's a very immature point of view that whatever system you have, you get insecure about it has to be number one, it has to be the best. There's no way that you could acknowledge the other, and the other one, there's nothing good about it. You know, you can never say anything good about the opposing console. I touched on this last week, and I don't want to harp on it this much, but I got caught up in that too. Of course, I grew out of it. It seems a lot of people either haven't grown out of it, or maybe this is just the younger generation, and I'm the old man on his porch waving his cane at kids going by, "Get off my damn lawn, you young whippersnappers!" So I don't fucking know. I don't fucking know. So I just wanted to touch on that. That is all taken care of. It's not really a big deal. To me, it's actually kind of funny. So if anybody was going to ask me what I thought about that, that's what I thought about that. It's funny because it's something that happened. I think it's ridiculous that the people at Sony don't know what year is leap year. They can't really program an internal clock. It's amazing that you're seeing a Y2K style bug that was basically in the middle of 2006. I'm well aware that it's 2010, but you have to remember these are the consoles that came out in 2006, the older PlayStation 3 models. There was some talk about, some people were saying that this is Sony's way of forcing people to upgrade to get the PS3 Slim, and it's like, these are the people that spent $600 on it. And yeah, the new one's cheaper, but they spent $600 on it. They want to get their money's worth. They don't want to upgrade to the Slim. They don't, unless they have money falling out of their assholes, which in that case, wonderful for them. I hope they do get every console ever. But if you don't have money falling out of your asshole and you spent $600 on this machine, you want it to last. And I'm happy that it's fixed, because I could only imagine the pain of having spent $599.99 plus tax, and God knows how much on fucking games and accessories, and then to one day just come on it and it's all like, no, can has. I would flip out. I understand the rage that people went through, because these are the more expensive models, and this is 4 years later. You know, there's no reason for this to happen. It's a completely ridiculous bug, and I don't think that was Sony trying to make people upgrade, because it was fixed the next day. It was fixed the next day, and I don't think that would work anyway. That would be pretty evil. That would be like on the level of Apple, who are coming up with ideas like forcing advertisements that onto your iPods and other products that not only would force you to watch them, but would actually force you to participate in them by answering poll questions, and may actually turn off features of your iPod or iPhone until you respond to the advertisement. Wow. This is why I'm so glad there's a such thing as the Google phone. This is why I'm so glad that there's a company like Google whose motto is "Don't be evil." And that's why they're doing well, because when you give people what they want and you don't fuck them over, you're going to do well in business as long as your product is good. So anyway, enough about that. Let's get to our guest. This is Jess. She's a good friend of mine. We've been talking online for quite a while since she found my videos. And I decided I had to invite her to become my first guest. She wanted to come on and talk about Castlevania. So let's give a nice hello to my very first guest, S. Visionik.
Girl directions, give me the fucking address! Just give me the fucking address, you bitch! Give me the fucking address! I'm using a GPS! Fuck!
Okay, so here we are with my very first guest on the VMX show. This is Jess. What do you want me to call you? Do you want the online name, or do you want your real name?
We can do a little bit of both. It's fine.
A little bit of both. So I'm gonna call it. Well, and then again, it's what's online name. You have Sweetie Gamer. You have Visionik or whatever the hell it is.
S Visionik.
S Visionik. Yeah.
There is an S in
there. Well, I'm not gonna say that. I can't even say it right.
Okay. But no, Sweetie Gamer.
Sweetie Gamer. That's your YouTube channel. If anybody wants to check it out.
There's nothing on there.
I was just going to ask, is there actually anything on there?
No.
Didn't think so. Didn't think so. All right, so you wanted to talk about the new Castlevania game that's coming out for Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 sometime this year, which is called Castlevania Lords of Shadow. I guess we'll start with what's your thoughts on it?
Oh my god, I want one.
Oh my god. Oh my god, Castlevania.
Well, I know. Well, I mean, it's Castlevania.
Well, you know
And-
me. You know that it's my favorite series.
Well, yeah, it's mine too.
And that I absolutely am in love with the game, the series, and that I'll be pre-ordering this probably.
Oh yeah, no, same here, same here.
And I
I'm
never do
actually,
that.
I'm waiting. I keep checking the website. They're like pre-order now, and the button keeps moving on me.
I haven't checked in the last few days, but as of the last time I checked, I don't believe it actually even has a release date yet.
Nope, unfortunately.
So what are you thinking? Are you thinking it's going to come out in the fall, or are we going to see this late summer? Because it seems to me that we haven't seen a whole lot. We've seen a couple of trailers. We've seen what looks like gameplay. I mean, do you think this game is close to being done, or do you think they're just teasing us?
It could go either way. It could be just a big cock tease, or it could be coming out this year.
Yeah. Well, I think it's definitely going to come out this year because 2010 has been the word since mid-2009, and when you're in summer of 09 and you're saying 2010, you have a lot of room to work with.
That's true. No, I'm making a prediction of fall. That's when the really big powerhouse games tend to come out.
That is true, and Konami has a pretty good track record for releasing things on time.
Right.
They're not like a Nintendo or some of the PC developers that it takes 13 years for a game to never come out, like Duke Forever. We don't want it to be Castlevania Forever, because that's
it's going to take forever to come out, maybe, but... my only worry is because of the huge names that are in it, if that's going to trip Konami up at all. All the actors seem, from interviews and such, seem really great, so I mean, that's not a huge concern, but it does give me a bit of a pulse.
Well, it seems to me that the acting is probably going to be limited to cutscenes anyway.
That's a shame. I don't want that.
I mean, well, you'll probably be hearing Robert Carlyle's voice as Gabriel Belmont throughout the game. You'll hear him grunting and probably saying random shit. But I think a lot of the dialogue is going to be cutscene side. I can't see that having a huge effect on the gameplay, which is, of course, the most important aspect of any game, especially something from a legendary series like Castlevania.
Right, I don't think Konami's stupid enough to do anything really treacherous, like flood it with gameplay like has been done. But I think the gameplay is going to be very solid because, I mean, they've got such a series we all love. You say
Absolutely.
Castlevania and you hear the MIDI music in your head and you get this stupid smile on your face.
Yeah.
Exactly. You get
I have a stupid smile on my face right now.
Exactly, but
Right
then
now,
you
I have a
remember how
stupid
many
smile on my
times you
face.
died, and then that smile starts to go away a little bit.
Well, if you're AVGN, I guess.
Well, no, I died quite a lot throughout the entire series. Actually.
Oh, of course. That's bound to happen. I think they're easier now than they used to be. I kind of wonder about the difficulty. One thing that was a concern for me was the producer on this is Kojima.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a big fan of his work.
Well, he's been up in the he's kind of when he does really great, he does really great. But when he doesn't, he does
Well,
kind
when
of...
is that?
Uh,
When is that? Because I haven't seen it yet.
That's a good point. I can't
I'm
think
waiting
of it.
for that. I hope Castlevania is the exception. I mean, he doesn't seem very, very involved in the actual gameplay, and that's another thing is the gameplay. The 3D Castlevania has been something that's been attempted many times, and
Oh, God.
obviously you can't please all the people all the time. Now, I liked the Nintendo 64 games, but they weren't perfect by any means, by any stretch of the imagination. And then the PlayStation 2 games were also good, but it seems that whenever they do 3D, they're borrowing from someone else. It seems that the controls in the Nintendo 64 games are very much Zelda-oriented.
Mm-hmm.
The PlayStation 2 games are very much Devil May Cry-oriented.
Right,
And this one looks like God of War.
See, now, and you and I have discussed this before, you're hoping for the analog stick to control the whip. I think they are
Absolutely.
going to borrow from God of War.
Absolutely. And, I don't think that that's a bad place to pilfer from if you're going to pilfer a combat engine. I mean,
God, no.
I've been playing through a similar game, Dante's Inferno, and it plays very much like God of War. I'm hoping for something a little bit more deep than that for Castlevania, but I think they'll pull through on that. Back to the cast, because you mentioned this. What do you think of Jason Isaacs' involvement? It's not been said exactly who he's playing, but I think, judging from the extended trailer that was shown at E3, I think we can all infer he's probably playing Dracula.
If he's not playing Dracula, then I'm going to throw a little girly hissy fit.
Yeah, I think that I think they're teasing us, and I think he is probably playing Dracula. And I mean, this also brings us to the whole thing that this is coming out, and then on the heels of that will probably be the Castlevania movie in 2011.
Oh,
and
so looking forward to that.
And that's been a project that has been started and stopped, completely trashed, and then restarted. They've thrown out more scripts than I could even count, and it seems right now they're building it from the ground up again.
Well, you know, I do have to say, I would rather them throw out a million scripts than give me a shitty one.
Well, yeah, and of course there's been some concerns raised about Paul A. Anderson's role in this whole thing. As you know, he directed Resident Evil for what that's worth, and then he wasn't directing it, he was just producing it, and then some other guy was directing it, and now I don't even know who's directing it at this point, because we've gone through scripts, we've gone through directors, and all we have to show for this long developmental period on the movie so far is a poster.
Yeah, definitely. One thing I'm really, really, you know, I'm in the fucking cheerleader section with this one. I've never seen a video game made movie done really well.
Well, I guess it depends on what you mean by really well. I think it's all relativistic. When you see the first few video game movies are like, you know, Super Mario Brothers and Street Fighter. After that, a lot of the ones that are not that great start to look great.
Alone in the Dark.
Wow, that's, you know,
hard.
That's Uwe Ball, so I don't think we can expect much from Uwe Ball.
True.
I'll be honest, I liked a few video game movies.
Which one?
You know, it's surprising because I hate the video games, but I actually like the 2 Tomb Raider movies.
Did you really?
Yeah, and it's a shocking thing because I can't stand to sit there and play the games. And maybe the reason that people didn't like the Tomb Raider films was there were nothing like the games. Maybe that's why I like them.
It could be you have to hate the game to like the movie, and you have to hate the movie to like the game.
Well, works for me.
See?
Works for me. And what else was there? I mean, I haven't seen Silent Hill, but I've heard good things about that, of course.
You know, I've heard good things, I've heard bad things. I actually really like Silent Hill, but I'm also a huge fan of the series.
I've never played a single one, and
you're really missing out on it.
I'm not a huge survival horror fan. I mean, I like Resident Evil, but that's about it. We're getting a little off topic, of course.
Oh, yeah.
You know, our conversations always do this, don't they?
We go everywhere.
Yeah, we go all over the place. But back to Castlevania. Again, one thing that a lot of people have sort of forgotten about in this whole excitement about Lords of Shadow and the trailers and everything. As you remember, Lords of Shadow, when it was originally shown, it wasn't a Castlevania game at all, if you remember.
It's not.
And then it was later that they revealed it as a Castlevania game, and it turned out that they were always wanting this to be the next Castlevania game, but at first they were not saying this because they didn't want to steal thunder away from Castlevania Judgment, which is the fighting game on the Wii. Mm-hmm. Now, here's something that a lot of people have forgotten, though. The teaser trailer for an Igarashi-developed game that had Alucard in it. What happened to that?
Honestly, I don't know.
Have you seen this trailer?
No. So I don't know.
Okay. You might want to look on YouTube. Everybody was talking about this, that it's all it shows is Alucard 3D rendered with a sword, and it kind of has some Japanese text that's about him, and then it says PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and that was it. It was just a teaser, and with Igarashi not being involved in Lords of Shadow, I kind of wonder if he's still quietly working on this other game.
No, that might be, actually. That makes sense, anyway.
What else are you expecting from this game? Like, not exactly what you want, but what do you expect from it?
Well, I mean, one of the things that's really intriguing is it's a reboot. It's not a part of the original series.
Well, I don't think that reboot is really the right
Wait,
word.
all right, no, that's poor wording. My apologies.
I think that perhaps just I don't know. I mean, maybe
it's a
reboot's the
step
right word.
away. It's a step away from the original, without losing any of the heart.
I've been calling it a bubble game because it takes place in its own little bubble, and I think they just wanted to be unburdened by what came previously so that they don't have to worry about things. But then again, I also think that they're not necessarily starting a new series, which is why I shrink away from the term reboot.
I don't know. I think that if this makes enough money, that they might consider doing a second one, or possibly even a third. I don't think it'd go beyond that though. But the Konami is really, really great about giving the fans what they want. And if at the end of the day the fans want another game, then Konami might just give that.
But when you say one other game, are you talking about another Gabriel Belmont game, or are you talking about just another game in that same vein? Because they've shied away from doing direct sequels. There's only been a couple in the history of the series.
Right. Well, I mean, it follows the same as kind of Zelda does. It's got the really, really confusing.
I don't think it's quite as confusing as nothing's quite as confusing.
No,
as Zelda.
That's well said. Well said. But no, I think that they might. This might break the trend. They might do an honest sequel, or they might do the Son of Gabriel Belmont, done by some other really great looking actor. If they lose Jason Isaacs, if they do a sequel and they lose Jason Isaacs as Dracula, again, I'll throw a girly hissy fit.
And if they did,
really looking forward to it. Jason Isaacs.
Who would you want to replace him if that happened?
I wouldn't. Absolutely not.
I mean, assuming that he doesn't want to sit there voicing Dracula for the rest of his life, and they still want to do another Castlevania game and they want voice acting, who would be your next choice?
Max von Sydow.
Oh, well, Max von Sydow will eat your soul.
That's right.
He's kind of old, don't you think?
He's really old.
I was thinking something along the lines of like an Alan Rickman or something. And it's weird because we're both gravitating towards British actors when Dracula is Romanian.
Well, now if you think about it though, all of the actors I've gotten so far for are English.
Very true. Very true. Well, yeah. I mean, you look at all the not Bela Lugosi.
No, I mean in voicing the Castlevania game.
Well, who? No, they've been Japanese. I mean, who?
Well, no, I mean the voice actors for Lord of Shadow, they're all English.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
True. And that's interesting because here you have Konami is a Japanese developer marketing games almost solely at Japanese and American audiences. What do you think possesses them to get an all-British cast?
Because everybody loves the British voice.
I guess. Well, yeah, I guess. Patrick Stewart's also involved, and he seems to be playing sort of a mentor character, and I sort of get shades of Albus from Order of Ecclesia. Do you think that this character is going to turn out to be a bad guy?
It's Patrick Stewart, love. He's always a good guy.
Well, no, that's not true. I mean, Patrick Stewart has done a very good villain in some roles. Conspiracy Theory.
He's never done a role where you think he's good and then he goes bad.
Oh, that's true. Well, maybe that was what attracted him to it.
It might be.
Something that he hasn't done.
It's already up in the air. We don't even know if it. It might just be another Oblivion. He might just be in it for like 15 minutes and then get killed.
And that was another thing about Oblivion. Patrick Stewart was used to market it, and then it turned out to be a rather small role. Do you foresee something maybe happening like that?
I really, really hope not, because Patrick Stewart is such a powerful voice actor.
I'm a big fan of his, as you know.
Oh yeah, oh no, I know.
I mean, I have a picture of Captain Picard doing the face palm up at my desk at work.
I'm surprised you don't have like a little heart stick into the.
No. See, I'm not Stewie Griffin. I'm not like that.
Oh, okay.
I'm not Stewie Griffin, but
just
when I saw the face palm, the unmotivator, where it says, face palm for when words fail at how disturbingly stupid this is, because that's my job right there, is me doing the face palm all day.
Cool thing. I mean, right now they got Robert Carlyle, Patrick Stewart, Jason Isaacs. It even could be that they're hiding somebody in the back wings.
Very cinematic this time around, don't you think?
It is. It really is, and that's why.
With the trailer, the focus being on showing the actors, the names, and it's almost like the opening credits.
Well, yeah, it's like a movie preview.
Now, does that worry you a little bit that it would become a little too close to like a Metal Gear Solid type of thing?
See, now, at first I was, but then I remembered it's Konami, and Konami, they've got a
Well,
nice...
they make Metal Gear Solid.
Well, I know, but, you know, I'm hoping that they've got a good head on their shoulders, so I think that maybe they have paid attention to, like, fan reviews of, oh my god, I don't want to watch the Metal Gear 4 movie again.
Yeah.
It was bad. There's a lot of cutscenes in that game.
Well, it's something like, what is it? Hours and hours of cutscenes, isn't it?
I think so.
I've heard like 70 hours. I don't believe that for a second. I think that's excessive, but
70 as a gameplay of what we used to coming out of the Nintendo game. That's what we got when we were kids.
Yeah, I guess. Damn. I mean, wow.
Isn't that a realistic slap in the face?
That's getting teabagged by Konami right there.
Exactly.
I see. That's another thing. I don't understand the Kojima fans. I don't understand the Metal Gear fans because, I mean, they're getting an overly convoluted story, and that you can barely follow it. It's something akin to like a Xenogears almost.
You're gonna get death for that one.
Oh well, I've always talked bad about Xenogears, and that's nothing new to me.
No, I was talking with Metal Gear.
Oh, Metal Gear. Now, well, that's another thing. I'm used to that too.
Yeah.
And very little in the way of gameplay. And,
it's true, and you know, if Lords of Shadow falls that way, I'm just going to be very disappointed. But at the same time,
I'm hopeful.
It's Castlevania is you can so market Castlevania as a movie though, and you have such a loyal fan base that I think if they give us a lot of cutscenes but don't try to drown us with it, I think we'll still be happy as long as the gameplay is smooth, intuitive, and what we're looking for.
Another thing that's plagued the 3D Castlevanias has been the level design.
I don't know. Looking at what leaps and bounds have been done with 3D over the last few years, I don't think that's going to be an issue at all.
Well, it's not so much a technology issue. I think it's a design issue that happened. I mean, Lament of Innocence was a beautiful game, but very, very repetitive in terms of the rooms you're going through. My friend Joey called it Halovania because of the repetitiveness.
Oh, Joe. You know, it can go either way. You get to see a sneak, like it's a little peek at what the actual gameplay is going to be. And YouTube is terrible, like Castlevania Lord of Shadows gameplay, and you get like strange, not quite porn, and some retarded kid scream at the camera. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's YouTube.
I know YouTube.
YouTube is a special thing according to the Board of Education, anyway.
All you have to do is look at any of the comments. And
well, that's another thing that I just wanted to touch on. I'm glad you segued into that. Was the comments that have been levied against the trailer and Lords of Shadow. They're saying it's too much like God of War, or that it's too much action, and they're not seeing,
they're
not seeing the exploration aspects. And of course, my response to this is, it's a 4-minute trailer. How do you know there isn't loads of exploration in the game?
And first of all, I have to not enough, too much action. Really?
Yeah, well,
it's a Castlevania game. It's supposed to be non-stop action. Yeah, you're supposed to get exploration, but you get the action too.
Well, of course, a lot of fans feel that the focus should be on exploring a castle, and while I can see that from the games that we call Castle Troids or Metroidvanias, Symphony of Night.
Yeah, from Symphony. It's Castlevania 1, 2, and 3. It wasn't so much. I mean, you had a little bit of exploration. You had to whip everything.
Very little. And I think that every time that one of these Metroid-style games comes out, I absolutely lap it up. And everybody else does, and it gets such great reviews. And there's always people saying, well, it's wearing a little thin at this point. So maybe, transitioning back to a more action-oriented game will either placate this, or it'll make people appreciate the exploration aspects more. Of course, like I'm saying, they're judging this. They're saying there's no exploration in the game, and they're basing this on
a 4-minute trailer,
4-minute clip, only a little bit of which is showing gameplay. And of course, when you're doing a trailer, like you do a trailer for a movie, you show the action scenes. You don't show characters wandering around.
Or you show the best lines. I just hate
you. Well, I think trailers for movies reveal too much.
Oh, absolutely. No, you and I spoke about this as well.
Yes.
My favorite trailer being Hannibal. because
wow,
it just shows Anthony Hopkins walking towards the screen,
Bram
and it
Stoker's
fades out.
Dracula.
Hannibal.
Bram Stoker's Dracula was a good trailer too.
Yeah, definitely.
But two bad trailers for good movies, nonetheless. One was Terminator Salvation, which ruined the big reveal in the middle of the movie.
I know. That was so sad.
And Dolan's Cadillac, which is the whole movie.
You can watch
It gives you the entire plot, beginning, middle, and end.
Exactly.
So it's like, why watch the movie? I've seen it already. And I think that a really good example of a trailer would be District 9.
Yeah, definitely.
Because that was something where I had no idea what it was about, but I was intrigued.
Yeah. No, and what a great movie, too. I loved it.
Of course, me too. That was my favorite movie of last year. Way better than, Avatar, anyway.
You mean Dances with Wolves 2? Dances in Space.
Dances in Space!
That's right.
With giant blue kitties.
South Park hit it the best.
South Park did do it. Well, South Park has this whole thing about latching onto something and making perfect fun of it. And we got a few minutes left. I'd actually like to talk about South Park because they've touched on video games quite a lot.
Yeah, they have.
They talked about the launch of the Wii. They talked about the launch of the PlayStation Portable. They've talked about Grand Theft Auto China Wars. What did you say there?
World of Warcraft.
Wow, a whole episode related to World of Warcraft.
That was a good one too.
And what would you think? What do you think about this? I mean, do you think these guys are gamers, or do you think that they're just picking at pop culture?
Matt Stone and Trey Parker.
Yeah.
They've admitted they've been gamers. They love video games.
Okay. Well, I don't read every interview that comes out.
Oh yeah, no. Trey Parker, he's been playing video games since he was a kid.
Oh, there you go. So he's like me, huh? And you, and all of us nerds.
Anybody listening to the podcast, I hope to God.
Well, if they're listening to my podcast and they don't play video games, I kind of wonder why they're listening.
It's a very valid point, but then again, it's the first touch base is from YouTube, and
I'd love for them to actually come and tell me why they're listening, if not about games.
Because I was bored.
I had nothing else better to do, and I see this VMX show, and I figured, what the fuck?
Well, actually, a lot of them will probably be, friends of mine from Perfect World, which I've been playing, and from my friends on a forum. I told them, I'm going to be on a podcast. Come on.
Oh, well, yeah, but they're gamers.
Some of them.
If they're playing,
it's from Perfect World. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. One thing that's very important, you can't talk about any Castlevania game without talking about music. And this has been a series that is probably best known for its music. It's probably got the best track record out of any series for having great soundtracks. We've heard very little of the soundtrack, just what was in the trailer and one full song that's leaked out. I don't know if you've heard that.
Oh, yes, I have. And from that little bit that I've heard, it's going to be epic.
It has a very Spanish orchestra feel in this, doesn't it?
It's got a very, very nice feel to it. I really, really like it. It's very high, epic, very good. I'm going to be very happy. I just know it.
Now, another game soundtrack. This is a game soundtrack that was just released. God of War 3. The soundtrack just came out the other day, and this, of course, used licensed music. And I, of course, took a great interest in this, even though my interest in God of War 3 is merely aesthetic. There's no way I'm going to play the game I don't have the system it's on. But that being said, when I hear that the soundtrack is Dream Theater and Opeth and Trivium and Killswitch Engage, I had to check it out. Now, of course, this isn't a full soundtrack. It's 6 songs.
Right.
Now, how would you feel about major bands like this coming to record something like a Castlevania song?
That Castlevania and God of War are two different creatures.
Well, of course. Well, God of War isn't the first game to have licensed music.
Well, no, it's not. But it's much more into the, you've got the action that you can play to really good metal, like Dream Theater and Opeth. Whereas Castlevania is much more orchestra.
Have you heard these songs yet?
No, I haven't heard.
Well, actually, I want to disagree with something you said because Castlevania has been very metal in its history.
It has,
and that's why I think that, I'm not talking about a whole soundtrack. Right. Obviously, these 6 songs are not going to be all of the music in God of War 3. So I wouldn't be against, like, a metal band doing a Castlevania song.
Well, no, don't confuse me. You can still do really great, look at Apocalyptica. they took really good metal and they put it to, the cello.
Yeah.
Still sound,
And then they became a metal band after that, which is bizarre, but.
Well, they had to do that segue.
It's very strange.
But no, you can still do metal on orchestra and still make it sound a bit of both.
That's true, and especially if you're dealing with the likes of Dream Theater and Opeth, because these are progressive bands, and they always will have those influences. We're just about out of time, but I did want to briefly touch on them. You haven't heard these songs yet. They're in my favorites. If anybody wants to check them out, well, two of them are the Dream Theater song and the Opeth. Surprisingly, Dream Theater went very heavy on this. Well, that's not surprising. They went instrumental. The surprising part, Opeth, very mellow, acoustic song with vocals. And I could imagine someone like Mikhail Ackerfeld from Opeth coming to Sony and saying, well, you've got Trivium and Dream Theater and Killswitch Engage. How about we do something weird and acoustic?
Yeah.
And I gotta recommend that. And I gotta recommend that specifically to you, Jess, because I know you're a metalhead.
Of course. So I can't headbang like I did, years ago.
Why not?
Break something. Oh, I'm too old. My neck is...
What? How old are you?
26.
You're younger than I am.
Well, it doesn't
Get out of here.
Shut up.
You're a kid.
Just a pup.
Yeah.
No, it's...
Bangers and mash, bangers and mash.
Oh, shut up. Headbanging is very, it's very social scene. You have to have the mosh pit. You have to have that feel. I don't have anything like that up here. It's all, the pub I go to is Shamrocks. We play...
Oh, you're getting a plug now, huh?
Well,
Would you headbang to the Spanish orchestra from Lords of Shadow?
I might, you don't know.
Yeah.
What happened?
You know I will be.
That'd be very bad for gameplay for you.
Well, you put it on the sound.
What happened to the controller? John put his head through it.
One last question for you. Do you think Castlevania will return to the DS?
I certainly hope so.
If they've done 3, and if they do a 4th one, that'll be the first system to have more than 3 Castlevania games.
Yeah, they'll be breaching on to Beyond 3.
Yeah, Konami being very reluctant to stick around for one system at a time. And actually, I do have one last question for you. How do you feel about it going multi-platform?
I'm happy that it's going multi-platform. And the reason why is because, I'm one of those persons. I have an Xbox 360. I don't have a PS3.
Yeah.
And I know friends of mine who have a PS3 but no Xbox 360. So, why ostracize your market when you can just physically do for both systems?
And as you know, I absolutely agree with that. The only other time that a specific Castlevania game has gone multi-platform was Curse of Darkness.
Mm-hmm.
But that was interesting because that was on PlayStation 2 and it was also on Xbox, but nobody cared.
No, not at that time. Xbox was, the redheaded stepchild coming out with, I got shooty games, you want to play? No.
I got shitty games!
Just shooty, not shitty.
Do you want to play my shitty games?
They were pretty shitty, actually, too.
Well, Halo,
Well, I don't like Halo.
Do you like to walk through the same area 5 times in a row?
And listen to, the 13-year-olds phone you. No, not really.
You think?
You suck! Learn to play, you.
Okay, well, thanks for appearing on the show.
Of course.
You'll have to come back sometime because this has been great.
Fun.
You'll have to come back sometime. And I'm sorry to anybody out there who's listening to the interview section of this if the quality of the audio is a little off. It's my first time doing this with Skype.
Oh, you should have heard it. It was funny.
So if there's any parts that were kind of weird, I'll try to clean it up best I can, but you know how it is. So, Jess, thank you for coming by.
Anytime.
We'll see you again sometime in the future.
See you guys.
Okay.
Okay, that was a great 8-bit rendition of Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good by Megadeth, sequenced by 8-Bits Brothers on YouTube. So if you want to hear, so he does a lot of metal and he does a lot of classical stuff in 8-bit NES style. Don't have a whole lot of time left. The interview ran a little long. I tried to get them to be about 25 minutes. That one ran a little longer. No big deal. It was fun. Hope Jess will come back someday and do some more radio with me here on the VMX show. Before I go, I wanted to, of course, invite you, if you want to be on the show, just give me a ring on YouTube or AOL Instant Messenger. We'll talk about it. You got to have Skype, and if you don't have it, but you still want to be on the show, I can try and help you out. It's a free program. You don't need to pay anything. It's very easy to download and install, and once you're on it, I can pretty much just take over and call you and record everything. So if you have something you want to talk about with me on the VMX show, give me a ring, let me know about it, and we'll try and arrange for you to be a guest on the show. Of course, if you have more questions, in the beginning of the show I answered your questions. You have questions, there will be a video on YouTube announcing the new episode, and of course you can post your questions as responses to that. You can send me an email, necrovmx@gmail.com. You can hit me up on AIM, necrovmx, or you can send me a private message on YouTube, as long as you let me know it's a question that's for the show. Before I go, one thing I wanted to do, and I kind of want to make this a tradition, as this is the first show of March, let's take a look at the video games that are coming out this month, the month of March. Of course, we already had some video games come out. Right now, it's the 5th of March. On the 1st, we had Mega Man 10 come out for the Wii. You already saw I did some videos of that. On the 2nd, there were a number of releases. Silent Hunter 5, Battle of the Atlantic for Windows. Battlefield Bad Company 2, that came out for Windows, Xbox 360, and PlayStation 3. Supreme Commander 2 came out for Windows. MLB 10, The Show, came out for PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, and PlayStation Portable. Once again, like I said, PlayStation 2 not quite dead yet. Also MLB 2K10 for Windows, Xbox 360, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, Wii, and PlayStation Portable. So if you're looking for the new baseball game, if you're looking for the true multi-platform experience, looks like MLB 2K10 is better than MLB 10 The Show. Then again, I could have told you that anyway, because that's 2K Sports, which kind of evolved out of Sega Sports in a way. So there you have it. Actually, was kind of surprised it didn't come out for the DS. Maybe it's coming out later. On that same day, also SpongeBob's Boating Bash, for those people that are interested in that, not me certainly. That came out for the DS and the Wii. And Sonic Classic Collection came out for the DS. How many Sonic collections do we need? I mean, that's kind of amazing. It's basically Sonic Jam, which was on the Saturn. Now it's on the DS. On the 9th, we had Assassin's Creed 2 came out, the Windows versions. And Final Fantasy 13 will come out on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. It didn't come out. This is on the 9th. This is what's coming out. So if you're looking for the PC version of Assassin's Creed 2 or Final Fantasy 13, also Yakuza 3 is hitting PlayStation 3. On the 11th, PlayStation Network owners will get to finally play Mega Man 10, and PC owners will get to play Warhammer 40,000 Dawn of War 2 Chaos Rising. What a title. On the 14th, we got Pokemon Heart Gold and Pokemon Soul Silver coming out for the DS. Of course, they had already done remakes of Red and Blue, or actually it was Red and Green, I think. Now they're doing remakes of Gold and Silver. On the 16th, we got some major releases coming out. You got God of War 3 hitting the PlayStation 3. Command & Conquer 4 Tiberian Twilight is hitting the PC. Metro 2033 is hitting PC and Xbox 360. Supreme Commander 2 for Xbox 360. And Dragon Age Origins Awakening for the PC, Xbox 360, and PlayStation 3. On the 23rd, we got not really major releases, but some interesting ones. The Settler 7 Paths to a Kingdom is hitting PC. Also, Red Steel 2 will come out for the Wii. The first one kind of got lambasted, not very good reviews, but a lot of people are excited about Red Steel 2, and of course it also will support Motion Plus, so that's going to be a big thing. Just Cause 2 is coming out for PC, Xbox 360, and PlayStation 3, and Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey is coming out for the DS. So all you big Shin Megami Tensei fans, look out for that. On the 26th, we got Prison Break: The Conspiracy coming out for PC, Xbox 360, and PlayStation 3, and Quantum Theory will be hitting PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. On the 28th, WarioWare DIY will hit DSiWare. I don't have a DSi, but that sounds like something that would be fun. I unfortunately can't get that until I get a DSi. Grand Theft Auto episodes from Liberty City will be hitting PlayStation 3 and PC on the 30th. And finally, on the 31st of March, Xbox Live Arcade owners will finally get Mega Man 10. Kind of interesting how the PlayStation version was in the middle, the Xbox version was at the very end of March, and at the very beginning of March we got the Wii version. Kind of funny how that worked out. Anyway, that's about all the time I have for you this week. As a matter of fact, I've certainly gone over, so I'm going to stop right here. We'll see you next week on the VMX show for Season 1, Episode 3, VMX out.